welcome. We're with Michael Long, winner of the 1996 New Zealand Open here at Paraparaumu Beach. Currently residing in Perth, which I guess in itself is socially distanced from the rest of the world, so to speak. In New Zealand, we're currently in lockdown. What's the virus looking like, and what's things looking like in Perth right now?
Yeah, it's thanks, Leo. Yeah, it's crazy times, and what's normal, what's not normal for us. Well, for me personally, perhaps from not having any work and not being able to play, go around the world playing golf and do a few lessons. Not much has changed, but I think going forward in the next year, whatever it is, things will probably be all still a bit strange. But at the moment, for us, we're still over here in Perth. You're right, we are isolated. That's one thing. So it hasn't struck us hard. I think it's pretty much the same in New Zealand. We haven't had many deaths and infection rates still pretty low. I think everyone's got on board. Perth's that sort of lifestyle, a bit like New Zealand, only maybe a little hotter. It's an outdoor lifestyle, pretty easy to social distance. So,
are you confined to your homes?
No, not confined to our homes. We can still go. We can still play golf. They stopped it for about 2 or 3 days, and then they realised, look, for social well-being and that type of stuff. So we can go and play 2 balls, card each, 10-minute intervals on the tee time, and it's just that pretty much is normal. Golf rounds now take about 2.5, 3 hours, which is fantastic. Probably getting around about 2 hours 20 in a cart. You don't have to rake bunkers. You have to worry about the flags. It's just hit it, go to the next tee. So it's kind of cool. It's a bit like playing speed golf. It's quite fun. Simple
golf, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, as I said, we're in lockdown, and these interviews, I guess, are a small way of staying connected with our members and friends of Paraparaumu Beach. But they're also, it's presented an opportunity for us to connect with people that I guess have had a special affinity with Paraparaumu Beach over the years, and certainly with your New Zealand Open win amongst other achievements is certainly ticks that box. So from our point of view, it's wonderful to reconnect. I've personally been really looking forward to this interview. You're just slightly older than me, and so as your career was taking off, I guess my passion and enthusiasm for the game was just starting to develop. So you were amongst a number of really good New Zealand golfers we had at that time that were not only performing well in the domestic scene, but of course then branched out, and it was really exciting to be able to turn the TV on and see New Zealanders on the leaderboard and high up on the leaderboard, and Michael Long was certainly one of those names. So
thank you. Yeah, thanks. It was a good time. I mean, you're right. There was a fantastic group of players. I don't know whether it's ever reached those heights again, but for something like the Eisenhower team, where there's only 4 spots, we legitimately had 12 guys you could substitute in and out. So made competition very tough, and everyone was really having to play well each week to get in those, to make it at the amateur level. And then obviously I think those traits carried across to the professional career for a lot of the guys.
It was interesting just talking to a couple of your counterparts through that period. Yeah, I mean, they adopted the attitude that if they could be better than the Kiwi that was next to them, ultimately they'd actually be doing okay up on the world stage. And that was really interesting to hear, actually.
Yeah, it was Alex Mercer was the one who was our head coach, New Zealand national coach at the time, and he was more a coach than a teacher. So he basically said, when we were starting to go, this nucleus of this team starting to go away on trips across the interstate series here in Australia and stuff like that, he was saying, look, you guys are just as good. You just don't know it. You guys are just as good. And he tried to drum that into us. And I think if you go through towards the end of my career, it's pretty much the same thing as now. If you can't beat the guys in your own back, well, if you can't beat your guys in your pennant team, well, there's no point thinking of trying to go on to the next level and so on. And for us, it was sort of, we got drummed into the mentality, well, if we can beat those guys, let's see what we can do at the next level. And so it just kept on challenging us, which I think is pretty important in this game.
So you're born in the deep south in Cromwell, but then
Yeah.
the family went complete opposite and moved to the far north at Waitangi, which is a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I mean, my father he was a hotel manager, and quite highly respected in the tourism industry. And we went from, I think at that stage we were in Wanaka. We were living in Wanaka. And then we moved to Tiana, which is another resort area, THC Hotel, and then to Wairaki. And that's where I first sort of started playing a little bit of golf. And then when I was about 11 or 12, we moved to Waitangi, and that's where the bug pretty much hit me. I had a week off before my school started. My brothers had gone to a different school. So I had 7 days to fill in, and I think I probably played about 10 rounds of golf in 7 days, and that was pretty much it.
Okay. And was your father a golfer?
Yes, he was. I think I got down to, because kept on moving around, Wairaki, he never actually had an official handicap, but he was close to single figures. If just on that cusp of 10 to 8 to 12, somewhere around there. So he could hit the ball really well. Putting was probably his downfall. It wasn't the strongest part of his game, but yeah, he loved the game and enjoyed it. And I'd go out and caddy for him and on the golf course at Wairaki. Totally different to what it is now. It was actually owned by the government then, and but still wonderful golf course even back then, and now from what I hear, it's even prettier, and it's had some nice TLC, some tender loving care, and it really is, from what I hear, one of New Zealand's great golf courses.
That's a beautiful sanctuary. They've surrounded it with predator-proof fencing as well, and introduced another element with kiwis and wildlife and things like that. So
fantastic. But then, not to say that, I mean, I went to Waitangi, which was something totally different, but arguably I'd say, well, I think back then I was paying $20 a year to be a member, as a junior member there. Yeah. And now that travel the world, I don't think I realised, I know I didn't realise how lucky I was to play such a beautiful golf course up there as well. So New Zealand's blessed with great countryside and great golf courses and views and vistas, and Waitangi, I hear, has also gone on from strength to strength.
Yeah, it's a lovely spot. It's interesting with that junior membership because, okay, I mean, it was $20 back then. It's kind of the equivalent now. Like, I mean, it's around $100. And if I put that into context, I've got a couple of boys and a couple of girls. But my wife won't tell me what dancing costs. I suspect that costs about $100 a week. So golf is relatively accessible, and yeah, certainly I grew up the same way with those $20 to $50 memberships, and it was a great way to get involved in the sport.
And look, I mean, you can make it as expensive as you want or as cheap as you want. And in terms of equipment, I know there's a big push on equipment, the latest equipment, but still, it's I have the saying that it's the Indian, not the arrow, basically, and basically when you're playing, if you can move it with some clubs that aren't high tech, well, you're a pretty good golfer.
So, what stage, as a youngster, did you start to get the feeling that, hey, I can play this game, and I can obviously play it pretty well?
Well, like a lot of kids in New Zealand, I would have played a lot of sports, and I did. I played soccer and never played rugby, really. Never really got into that, maybe because I wasn't tough enough. I find it an amazing sport to watch and how strong those guys are. But volleyball, I played a bunch of sports. Volleyball, tennis. Tennis had a bit of a temper. Sometimes I probably wasn't well suited to that. And golf was probably a bit fiery now and then. But over the years, it calmed a little bit. So I played a lot of different sports. Cricket, loved my cricket. And then I sort of turned up to a soccer practice one evening, and half the guys turned up. And I turned to my coach and I said, look, if no one else is going to turn, if only half the team's turning up, I'm going to go and do something else. This is so. I sort of had that drive or want to, if I'm going to turn up something, do it really well. So then that's sort of when golf took off a little bit more for me. And not that I had any aspirations of where it was going to lead. And I still remember this. I think it was run by the Eagles Golf Foundation. I don't know whether you can remember them, but a lot of volunteers. And
Still there. Yeah.
Still around.
Yeah.
And they ran a school competition, and you had to have a team of 3 go and play in a school competition. Now, this was down in Whangarei. So back then it was a good hour's drive from Waitangi or Kerikeri High School, where I went to. And I managed to con 2 of my mates. I said, come on, let's go and play. Let's just go and play this thing. And Grant Martin and Grant Sorensen. And I said, come on, guys, let's go. And thank goodness they said, yep, they went and played. So you had to have a team of 3. And I think we had to push the family holiday back by a day. Anyway, so I went and played, and I didn't know what was going on, but it was a 27-hole competition, and I won it. For some reason, I beat there was a couple of good players there at the time who were considered good players, and then the junior squads and that. And I remember this guy, John Sutcliffe, who was, I don't think he's with us anymore, but he was the Eagle representative. He came up to me afterwards and says, do you want to come down and start playing a few, tryouts and competitions? And from there, I was just hooked. That was it. Pretty much I enjoyed the competition, and that's what I still do. I still love the competition. And from there, it was, all right, let's just go and play. And you sort of, again, you just go from level to level, and I don't know, it just kept on going. I'm not a big goal setter. I never really had any goals. I believe you have to have a dream, or you sort of got to dream a little bit. But I'm not a big fan of setting these goals and you must achieve this and that. I mean, there's a quote by Yogi Berra, great Yankees catcher, and he's famous for misquoting quotes. And one of the ones he says is, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. And to me, that's pretty much it. Don't overthink it. Just go with the flow and see where it leads.
So you discussed levels there, and if I look at your amateur career, I mean, you hit every level. You didn't just hit it, you ticked that box. I mean, you won the New Zealand Under-18s, the New Zealand Under-21s, the New Zealand Under-23s, and then you won the New Zealand Amateur. I mean, that's kind of pretty much all you can do. Talk us through that period. So clearly you've come out of the Eagles. You've been identified as someone perhaps with some potential. And what thrust you then into the national limelight?
Yes. I don't know. I suppose you do that, and then you play your few events around the Whangarei area, and then you start looking elsewhere in terms of, there's the New Zealand. I think it was a North Island Under-18s. Was the first time I went to a North Island Under-18. And I thought, I'll have a crack at this. And I actually played all right in that, and that was in Taupo, I think it was. I played there, and I think Matthew Lane was around at the time, and actually Paul Davenport, who I know you've probably spoken to.
I've spoken to him a couple of days ago. Yeah.
Craig Perks, they're all around there, but they were all a little bit older than me. And then I thought, I'll go and go to New Zealand under. I think the New Zealand Under-18 and Under-21s were at the same time. And I thought, I might as well go have a crack at that. So I went and had a crack at that. I thought I was going to do really well. I think it was in Palmerston North or New Plymouth, probably New Plymouth. And I promptly shot 94, 92. I don't know. I had an absolute disaster. It sort of didn't dent my confidence. It's gone. I was pretty disappointed at the end of that. And I thought, oh well. And then, but pretty much the same as what I do now. You have a bad performance and you think, that's it. I'm giving up. I'm racking the clubs, and then wake up the next morning and it's the itch is still there. And so it's pretty much the same as amateur golf. It's just there. Just something needs scratching. You keep on going. And I then went back to the New Zealand the Under-18s. I think maybe a year later, and by then, I obviously become a bit better of a golfer, and played in the Under-18, Under-21. So that was at Timaru. So I can't remember what year that was, but played in the Under-18 comps, and I won the Under-21 as well. So I actually won the Under-18s. I wasn't eligible for the Under-21s, but I shot the best score of everyone there. Paul Cadigan was another blast from the past. He was the under-21 champ, and so I played the under-18 that year. Then the following year, I moved into the under-21 category, and I finished third. Then the following year, I finished second. And then the final year, I think, was New Zealand under-21s at Parapara, and I won that. I think I stayed with Michael Campbell at that stage at his house. So won that. So I had a wonderful 4 years where each of the national, the main tour of the national championships, I had a top 3 4 years in a row, and 2 wins in those 4 years. So that was a magical little period, and I was starting to go to university then. Well, I was at university, so it was all a bit of a, well, you know, it's so different to what is done now. And I just carried on doing a bunch of other stuff and playing a bit of golf on the side, and I was at Waikato by then, and enjoying that team atmosphere. So that was a wonderful representative team.
Yeah, who were members of that? Yeah, Tatarangi was a member of that team. Yeah, who else did you have in it?
Phil Tatarangi, Steve Alker, David Smale couldn't even get in the top 5 team.
Right.
Paul Parlane was there, as well as we had our Colin Taylor, our John Gatleys, our Leon Taskers, Andrew McKenzie, Alan Smith. Again, such a competitive group of players that it was. That's pretty much what I thrive on.
Yep.
Yeah.
So did you play New Zealand Opens at that stage as an amateur? I know in those days you could go and try and qualify, or did you, before you turned professional, did you ever play in a New Zealand Open?
Well, no. Excuse me. No, not a lot, because I had enough time trying to fit in uni as well as a bit of golf. Well, I thought I did, but probably was more socialising and trying to fit that part in as well. So it's, by modern standards, I suppose I'd be considered quite lazy, but I felt I had quite a healthy balance between golf and getting away from golf, and just allowed me a better perspective on things. So no, I never really did. I never really thought of it. I remember I played in the Eisenhower team did get a start. The team got a start in New Zealand Shell Open, and I remember I played in one of them. Might have been maybe a year before I turned pro, maybe 2 years before I turned pro. Anyway, teed it up, and I played against these guys. I thought I was pretty good, and I shot. Well, I missed the cut by a country mile, absolutely by a country mile. And I turned to my parents and said, "Well, that's it. I'm not turning pro. I don't like this professional golf. I'm not going to do that." But you know, roll on a year, and I win the New Zealand Amateur, and someone says to me, "You realise what you've won?" And I said, "Yeah, I've won the New Zealand Amateur." And they said, "No, you've won a ticket to turn pro." And at that stage, I had 3 sort of prospective interviews. They weren't job interviews, but when they come to the campus and companies and they interview or do a pre-interview to see whether it's worth you coming and try and interview for a job. And I had 3 of them lined up, and I've gone, "Oh, yeah, I thought I was going to be a pro at one point, wasn't I? Well, yeah, I'll go give that a go." So that's pretty much how I fell into it. So professional golf, I won the New Zealand Amateur.
Yeah, so you won the New Zealand Amateur in 1990, but I read that your actual focus that year was on the Eisenhower that was being held down in Christchurch, which you duly made that team. You not only made that team, you finished 3rd leading amateur in that event. And to put that in context, you know, that was a field that contained Phil Mickelson and David Duval for a start, that would go on to, you know, to be obviously world-class players at the highest echelon. You came second to Sweden. I mean, talk us through that whole experience. It must have just been incredible to have done that, you know, not only on the world stage, but in your backyard at the same time.
Yeah, that was cool. That was great fun. Again, a wonderful team. And I mean, that year, Tony Christie didn't even make it. I mean, there's another name, a wonderful player. So we had a really strong team. So I win the New Zealand Amateur, and I'm pretty much a lock for the Eisenhower. And by this stage, once someone told me at the prize giving. It was actually David Podlick, who I beat in the final. He was an Australian from Queensland, and he said to me, you won a ticket to turn pro. By that stage, I automatically, sort of within 10 minutes, have mapped out, right, Eisenhower's going to be my final thing I'm going to play in, and then I'm going to turn pro at the end of it. But you don't let that be known, because back in that day, back then, if you said you were going to turn pro, you could almost jeopardise your spot in the amateur side. It was sort of a real divide between amateur and professional, and if you said I'm turning pro, they would have thought, oh, we'll get someone else in. So I kept it pretty quiet, and I really wanted to play well in the Eisenhower. So pretty much everything was focused towards that, because I knew that was going to be my last amateur event. And thank goodness I played well in it. I actually, I had a shocking practice round on the Tuesday. I thought, oh, where's this going? And took a deep breath that night and reassessed things, and then came out firing on the Thursday. And yeah, well, I mean, no one would have beaten Sweden. I think I finished third and individually, but the top three individuals were Swedish players. So, you know, when 3 out of 4 scores count, they completely flogged everyone else. So
did your pathway during that event, did you ever come across Mickelson and Duval? Did you guys play? Was it round robin?
No, we never actually got paired with America. I think they started slowly, because they had a couple. Alan Doyle was the other member, who was a great amateur player. Eventually played senior golf on the PGA Tour, and I can picture him. Anyway, so they started slowly, and it was pretty much us and Sweden the whole way through, even though Sweden were miles ahead, and sort of America were they were running third the whole way. So we generally got paired with Sweden a lot. So never really got to play with them. I actually ended up playing a lot with David's father when I went over to the US tour and met David through his father, Bobby. And so we played a lot of golf in Ponte Vedra Beach, and met David there, and enjoyed his company a lot. And I think he does quite a good job on TV. But anyway, so we never really got to play with him much. And once the Eisenhower was over, I basically said the next day I'm turning pro.
So it was literally as immediate as that, was it?
Pretty much. I've been pretty much looking forward to it, and I don't know, maybe I was scared that I had to go get a job or something. Oh, I'll just carry on playing this golf. And to be honest, really, I thought, well, I'm just going to play golf. I'll play it for 2 or 3 years, because the main reason behind it was that if I got myself a job, stayed amateur, I might miss a couple trials here and there, and then I'd be kicked out before I thought I was done with the game. You know, there'd be some young guy coming up, oh, he's played all the trials, he's only half a shot behind you. Sorry, that's the rule. So I want to take matters into my own hands, and decided to turn pro. And funnily enough, though, so I decided to turn pro. I played a couple pro-ams, I think, in Rotorua area. And then the first pro event I was going to play was in New Zealand Shell Open. So I finished third individual in the Eisenhower. I'm the reigning New Zealand amateur champion, and I had to go pre-qualify. I couldn't. They wouldn't give me a spot. So there I was, thrust into the reality of professional golf. 1 minute you're at the top, and then the next minute, which is, you know, completely different now. If a person with that credentials, they'd probably say yes, you can have a start. But there I was, Monday morning, 7:30, teeing it up, I think at Mungakiki Golf Club, with everyone else trying to get into the tournament, which I got in and made the cut, but that was about the only cut I made for the next 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, so I was going to say, what were those early years of turning professional like? You were probably playing on the Australasian Tour just solely at that point, and playing some pro-ams. I mean, what was it like back in the day? What was the pathway like?
Yeah, it was. That was pretty much it. The first year I just played the Australasian Tour, some pro-ams. I didn't play the Australasian Tour very well at all, so I only made one cut. I sort of pre-qualify for a few things. So back then it used to be you go to the tour school, and it wasn't an all-exempt tour like it is now. So you have a category, and they go down the categories, and if they go far enough, you get an event. Basically what happened there is you had your top 60 players who were exempt from the year before, And then there was another 50 spots available for sponsors, invites and whatever. And then also for pre-qualifiers. So you basically had to pre-qualify every week unless you finished top 10. Oh no, back then you had to pre-qualify every week unless you made the cut. If you made the cut, you didn't have to pre-qualify the next week. So I missed a lot of cuts, ended up doing a lot of pre-qualifyings and just trying to make money somehow to keep myself afloat doing it. But I enjoyed every minute of it. Absolutely loved every minute of it, even though I hated every minute of it as well. It's a weird thing. I think we are one step away from a padded cell sometimes, us professional sportsmen or sportswomen. It's a crazy world we live in. Then I had to go back to the tour school again and got my card again. And now I understood the system a bit more. I made a lot more cuts and started making some money. And then started going to places like Malaysia. Didn't play a lot. I never played the Asian Tour, but up into Malaysia, the Islands tours, had a lot of fun doing that. And, for the first 2-3 years, it was probably a lot more fun. Results didn't seem like they were important, but I think at that age, you're quite, you've got your whole lifetime here. There's no rush, just chill, and you're quite quick to get over things and move on and just enjoy what you were doing, which is going to some wonderful spots in the islands and the Pacific and up to Malaysia, which is a different lifestyle. And if you got hot water that night, that was fantastic. If you didn't, it didn't matter. And if you had a bed, that was even better. And they were some crazy times, but it was all part of it.
So you hung in there. You were young. You accepted the odd cold shower and sleeping rough, but you hung in there and you made it through. And then came the 96-97 season on the Australasian Tour, and you made 21 cuts in a row, which I understand is still a record today. Which is an incredible feat. You went from the top 800 in the world, and by the end of that season, you had broken into the top 100, which is a credible feat in itself. What was the change, and what kind of preparation did you do previous to that season that all of a sudden elevated you from from trying to look for a hot shower to being right up there on the top of leaderboards?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. It's quite a long story, so hopefully I don't go on too long. So I've been known to waffle a bit, but it probably started about 12 months or 18 months beforehand. So in 94, I decided to do a tax return. I better start doing some of this stuff. So I hadn't earned any money, so it didn't really matter. But anyway, I filed my tax return. And the government gave me, I don't know, it was about $7,000-8,000 or $10,000. That's how badly I was doing. I got this massive refund. I'm going, oh, that's cool. So just bought a house and went to my wife and I said, look, I've been given this money. What should we do? She says, well, let's go to the tour school. So let's go to the US tour school. And I'm going, oh yeah, that sounds like a pretty, let's do that. And from there, I've got two rules. One, I'm never going to put my house in jeopardy to go play golf. And then the second one is always buy a return air ticket. So no matter where you're in the world, you can get home. And so I put enough aside to cover the mortgage repayments and then put the rest in the tour school. Ended up getting through the tour school. I actually remember playing with Andy Bean in the second stage, who back then was quite a prolific PGA Tour player, and I enjoyed that and got through. My driver broke on the first hole of that second stage, and I played the whole thing without a driver, and got through. So then I'm over in the US, and this is 96. So now I'm across at the beginning of 96. I've gone to the 95 tour school, got some status, didn't know what it all meant, but I went across there. And basically, I'm on the Nike tour back then, I think. It's now Corn Ferry. And I went across there. I didn't understand how the system worked in that anyway. I made pretty much no money at all. Recurring theme early on, actually. I made the first cut, finished dead last, and then had to go to Mexico. And I played a little event, got myself a bit of money there. for $1,500 and put it in the Bank of America. And I thought, great, I'll go to Mexico, come back, I've got $1,500, I'll be able to survive. You know, I've got money. So I went down to Mexico, missed the cut, come back up into the deep south, somewhere in Mississippi. And I said, right, where's the Bank of America? And at this stage, Bank of America was only a Californian bank. So they said, yeah, just come into the branch and you can sign up and you're away. And I'm like, I'm in Mississippi, I've got no money. So basically for the next 3 weeks, well, actually I had about 3 weeks off and I want to play these little pay for play type events. I had no money. So for 3 weeks in a row, the guy luckily let me play. I said, look, I've got some money. I'm just going to try and get a hold of it. But he says, yep, you can play. So I forgot what it was, maybe $200, $500 entry fee. And I had to pay for my accommodation and I had to pay for my rental car and basically eat. And this is for my wife and myself. And so I've played 3 events in all these people's backyards somewhere in the deep south. To this day, I don't know where I was. They were just 2-round events. And 3 weeks in a row, I never won one, but I finished top 3 or top 4. And that was just enough to pay my entry fee back, pay my other bills, and move on to the next one. And it was the most pressure I've ever been under. I mean, we ate baby food. We had these little tins of baby food one night and bread rolls. Ate them 3 nights in a row. Just surviving. In the end, basically we sort of, after 3 weeks, mentally shot. Well, probably Kerry was. My wife was more mentally shot than me. She was just completely over this. So we jumped on the plane, came back, went and borrowed some money again, went back across, and their final event there towards the end of the year was I was in Texas and I finished top 3rd and was able to pay off my debt. So I'm back to square now. I'm actually back to square, come back. But that whole experience, I think, without realizing it, just toughened me up and just made me realize, well, you've got to do something, and probably got me into some really good habits, because then that's where it all kicked off from 96 and it just, playing golf in Australia in your own backyard or in Australia, New Zealand, it just felt so easy. There was none of this worrying, if I was going to pay my debts and what sort of stuff. It really was the catalyst. So that's where I think it all changed, in that probably 6 months before then. And then from there, it just took off and started with probably the Greg Norman, and that's where I really got myself going.
Yeah, so you arrived in Royal Melbourne for the Greg Norman Holden Classic. You wouldn't have realised, Michael, but a young Leo Barber had arrived at Royal Melbourne a year previous to you, and I was preparing the course. So I remember seeing you out with a couple of the Kiwi boys on the
fantastic
on a practice round, and I was still too nervous at that stage to thrust the hand out and introduce myself. But it was a massive thrill for me being involved in an event and to see a New Zealander up on the leaderboard. And the Greg Norman Holden Classics they were massive events in those days, because Greg used to come home to Australia anytime Greg was involved in an event. Obviously, the prize money went up. The interest from both the public and the press went through the roof. And 9 times out of 10, Greg was right there in the mix. So as he was in this event, Peter Senior went on to win it, but yourself got a 3rd placing. What was that event like for you?
It was great fun. This is where I was starting to put this little run together, and I think once I get myself in contention, I'm pretty good coming down the stretch. I like to get in contention a lot more than what I do, but if I get a chance to get in there, it's great fun. So I think it was Pete Senior and I were in the final group, and there was Greg Norman, and I can't remember who else was playing with Greg. So that was it was just great to mix with these guys, and especially Pete. I love playing against Pete. I really do enjoy his company. He's a great competitor and that, and I just saw what it was like to be a competitor as good as he was, and that's something I've always done, is just look around other people and you pick traits out here and there. I just love the way Pete plays the game. So it's just fantastic to play. It was a freezing cold day, I think.
It was an awful. The last round was awful. It was the rain came in, and it was actually really unpleasant. You would have played the majority of your final round in really poor conditions.
Yeah. Look, Pete played a great game of golf that day, and I remember he got lucky in one spot. He sort of hidden towards a tree, hits a camera cart and pops out. But apart from that, he just played great, and still one of the greatest short iron players. Well, I mean, he did a lot great then. I mean, he still does. I mean, he still does really well. But just remember his 8 irons and his 7 irons and his irons was really great. Actually, the only other person who I thought was equal to that was Grant Moorhead. Again, back in our amateur days, he was fantastic with short irons, and Pete just hold him, and it was great fun. But it was just, for me, playing Royal Melbourne, the composite was enough as it was. I just enjoyed playing those type golf courses, and but I think on about the 13th or 14th hole, I managed to hole a bomb of a putt for birdie, and then I managed to hole a couple more putts coming in and tidy up the scorecard and shot a respectable maybe 1 under or something and finished third. And I gained a lot of confidence from that. That I was probably pretty nervous to start with, struggled a little bit, really get the round going, and then was able just to. I was elated. I was elated to finish third. I thought, how good is this? This was a good check. I managed to not throw up on TV or anything like that, and put a round together and finish it off. And I'm going, okay, that's pretty good, because 94, I think I was up in the Touring Players Championship at Kingston Heath, and I was that nervous, and the crowds are huge again, and I was in the final group, and it took me 15 holes to realise that people. So I was playing awful up until then, and I finished about 13th or 14th. I realised that people weren't coming out to see whether this Kiwi could play and whether he was going to shank a few and that, whatever. People were just coming out to watch golf, and I sort of was able to get my nerves back together, and again, I final 3 holes managed to par him out and shoot my 77 or whatever it was. But I learned a lot from there, and it was just nice to have another opportunity a few years later and to actually get over your nerves, have your few little cues that you can do, and just put together a decent round that looked okay. Yes, it was a bit scrappy. Could be better, could be worse, but I managed to finish it off. So I was wrapped. I was wrapped with third.
So you return home. You return back home to the spiritual home in New Zealand golf, Paraparaumu Beach, where obviously we've been having a number of New Zealand Opens during that period. You're obviously buoyed by your success at Royal Melbourne, finishing top 3. You come out in the first round and you shoot 65, and you take the tournament, well under control. Talk us through '96. Obviously, that's a special part of our club's history, and it's etched obviously in your history as well.
Yeah, I mean, people often ask me what's your greatest event, or what do you think's your best? And in all honesty, if I go through it all, probably the New Zealand Open is it. Back then, I probably didn't realise how great it was to win your National Open. I think coming off a bit of a success from the week before, I just rolled into it. I won it. But I think as time has gone on and get to the end of it, I really am proud to have won the New Zealand Open, and especially at Paraparaumu, which I love. So, yeah, I come in. I'd stayed with the same people, Paul and Maureen DiBernardo. They lived.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
they were on about the 11th hole, I think, or something. Well, a streak back, but around there somewhere. So, coming back to familiar surroundings, feeling good about it, and I think I was paired with Michael Campbell, the first round, and we teed off 10, and I've gone first 3-4 holes. I hold a few putts, and I'm probably 2 under early. So I've got it rolling again. So I've just carried on the form, which I think is really important. Didn't seem to struggle. And he says to me, "I see how you won, how you did well last week." And I'm going, "Well, yeah, that's how anyone does any good in golf. You putt good. I mean, you can't make birdies without holding putts." And just carried on, finished that round off 65, and now you've got all sorts of thoughts going through your head, and I think I'm a sort of a. If someone asks me if a glass is half full or half empty, I'm going to say it's half empty. But then I will say in the next sentence that I'm going to try and have fun trying to fill that glass up. So I tend to look at what's the worst that's going to happen, and then let's try and fill it up. I mean, let's start a low base point and go from there. And that's sort of the way I've approached a lot of things. So got a few things going through your head. Second round, you just keep on rolling. To me, I always find in a tournament, the third round is really quite important. Get through the third round. If I get myself into position, I'm now feeling a lot more comfortable. So for me, the third round is the one where I really want to do well or just keep myself there, because I know I can play coming in the final round. And the par 3, about 14, is it?
Yeah, 14th hole,
14
yeah.
or 15?
Goes down to the school.
Anyway, I thought the wind was into me a little bit, I think, or maybe the wind was behind me. Anyway, I hit this club, and I've hit it OB. I've gone right over the flag, over the green, into the hedge, out of bounds. So I thought, great, come back there, peg it up again, hit it to about 10 feet, hold the putt. So I make 4 and get away with it. And that was sort of the stuff I sort of did in that third round. I probably shot only 1 under or something, but it was
yeah, you actually shot 1 over. You shot 72, so yeah,
1 over. Well, there you go. So, but that sort of kept me in it, because I was up the top. So I'm only, I think Peter Lonard was up there, maybe Paul Gow. So I'm there about, and I'm only 2 behind going into the final round. But it was just stuff that I did there, which I think was quite amazing, and just kept myself in it. And then final round, by this stage I've already got a few cues that I go through and stuff like that, so I've got myself fairly under control. But I start number 1, I think I par 1, scrappy par 2, maybe I'm bogeyed, I'm not sure, but anyway, I wasn't happy. I'm starting to talk to myself a little bit and give myself a few uppercuts, and just not right. My wife turns to me and says, "That attitude is never going to get anything done. I'll snap out of it, I'm going." And I probably sulked for a minute, and then slowly got back into it. And I still remember the 8th hole, the par 4, dogleg right, fairly innocuous looking hole. I think we were playing a little bit into the breeze, and I played it poorly all week. I've maybe bogeyed it once and scrambled a couple of pars. And the night before, I'm thinking, if anything, I'm going to play that 8th hole well. I'm over it. And I get on the 8th, and I've hit this beautiful drive and then a really good iron shot into 10 feet, hold the putt. And I think from that point in the final round, I knew things were pretty much under control. I just wanted to play that 8th hole well, and I played it beyond my expectations. And I thought, I've got things under control here. I asked on the 10th hole, I said to Kerry, I said, "How am I going? Don't tell me how I'm going, but just, am I going okay?" She goes, "Yeah, you're going okay." Carry on. I birdie 16, and then I didn't look at any leaderboards. Didn't ask any more questions until I got that tee shot on 18 out of the way. All I wanted to do was hit the fairway on 18. And then if I was 1 behind or 1 ahead, I'd play accordingly as to what I'd do. But that's what I was worried about. So I'm aiming up, and I'm left rough, just a yard inside the fairway, or just right on that. I knew I'd probably end up in the rough unless I pushed it slightly. I hit exactly where I wanted to hit it. It was just a yard, 2 yards off the fairway, or 3 yards, can't remember. And then that's when I asked, I said, "How am I going?" He says, "You got a 4-shot lead." And I'm going, okay, that's pretty cool. So now I'm sort of got to calm myself down. And the crowds are huge. Not many, hadn't been New Zealand winner for a number of years. And I held it. And then
Grant Waite would have been. Yeah, Grant Waite in 92 would have been the last. Yeah, so 4 years, yeah.
Yeah, 4 years. And then the crowds were huge. and I hit my next shot down there, hit the wedge onto the green, or little half wedge, something like that, and almost lost it there. Walking through the crowds, it still sends shivers down my spine. Not quite tears, but that was really, really big. And
so yeah, I mean, I've read that you're overcome with the emotion of actually having a crowd that were pulling behind you. It was playing around the world, you didn't necessarily play in front of favourable crowds, but this was an occasion that you could savour.
Yeah, look, I mean, it was. I felt the energy, and look, a few of the guys have sort of said it was a little bit. A few of the Aussie boys says they were pulling for you hard, and I didn't really notice it. I was just sort of playing whatever I did, but probably the 18th, because a lot of people say, "How do you play in front of crowds?" And to be honest, you really don't see them. It's just in the background. But then that's when I really sort of, with a 4-shot lead, and I hit my 3rd shot over the green. That's where I just looked around and thought, "This is pretty cool." Up until then, you don't have the opportunity to do that. But then once I'm on the green, I'm thinking, well, I can't 5-putt from here or 4-putt from here. I'm only 20 feet away. And I just sort of stopped and looked around and thought it was amazing.
So you were staying with Paul DiBernardo. I mean, that's old school. I mean, I know Paul really well. Paul was our president up until a couple of years. Yeah, he's still a great guy, him and Maureen. But I mean, this is old school. This is you getting billeted out. What happened when you walked off the 18th green? I mean, what were the celebrations like? And I mean, did you find yourself, sleeping in a single bed back at the DiBernardo's house later that night? And what was it like back then?
Well, actually, I mean, we did have a double bed because Kerry was with me, so we were. So that part was all right. They were fantastic. I mean, I think it's grappa or something like that. The rocket fuel they had. So I had a couple of those, maybe in celebration afterwards. I'm not sure what it is. It's some 40% proof stuff that they drink. I don't know whether it's my favourite, but it was great fun, the hospitality, and we have it. And they were friends with Peter Thompson. I think Peter Thompson was staying or had stayed with the parents, Paul's parents. I can't remember the name or something like that.
Yeah, Paul's father, Ido DiBernardo, was he was an absolute power broker at Paraparaumu during the 80s and responsible for a lot of those New Zealand Opens. I mean, nothing happened at Paraparaumu, evidently, unless Ido said it happened. He was a highly respected individual. Yeah.
So it was great. It was so I was made to feel welcome. So when I came back when I moved, I've stayed with Paul and Maureen maybe for a year beforehand. I think maybe only one. I don't think it was 2, but it sort of became my regular stop, and I felt quite comfortable there, and I was made to feel welcome. And Ido and Paul and all the drinks and all that type of stuff. It was good fun. It was great, and I think that night we did venture into Wellington, I think, there was a few there. I remember Jack Newton was there because he was commentating and coming up and congratulating me. And I think we looked back on I wish I had a chance to talk to him. I saw a replay a few years later, and I think he was commentating saying there was one shot I couldn't play. I'm over the back of the green or doing something. He's dead. He's going to have to do this or do that. Oh no, he's going to pull a flop shot out, and I think I hold it or something like that. And he goes, well, he wasn't allowed to do that. So it was great fun. It was a lot of fun, and I'd say the more you look back on it, have your first win at home. That was brilliant.
So 97 almost begins as 96 finished. The Johnny Walker Classic, which was a co-sanctioned event with the European Tour at this stage, came down to Australia. It was staged at Hope Island, and again, a young Leo Barber, almost shadowing to you, took annual leave and headed up, and I was actually preparing the greens for that event as well, Michael. So an amazing field, a lot of big names. Talk us through the early rounds there in 97.
I mean, yeah, you're right. It was also, I think it's fantastic how these big tournaments don't happen without volunteers and people like yourself who take your annual leave and you go out and you help all the other superintendents prepare golf courses. I mean, people ask me what's your favourite golf course and whatever, and I say, well, it's a bit unfair because every golf course we go to is the best it's ever going to be. So, and you guys do a fantastic job, and we're very lucky to do that. But I know a lot of it is volunteer work and stuff like that. So Johnny Walker's no different. Unbelievable field. It was just, I still think to this day, probably one of the strongest fields I've ever played in, apart from maybe a major, but it was unbelievable. They had Freddie Couples, Montgomery, Faldo, you name it, they were there. All the stars
John
were there.
Daly.
So it's fantastic. And a bit like myself, pretty much the way I've approached my golf is that I just want to get off to a good start and get myself going. And I don't mind sort of being in the shadows and just whatever, because I know what I can do. So I start off with a 68 and follow it up with another 68, and just again putting well, hitting a lot of good iron shots, and I seem to, I think Ernie Els, he was the one who was leading. Well, I was tied with the lead with or something like that. And he's in the press conference there, and I remember him saying, "Oh, it's good to see all these younger golf pros coming up, and the world's a small place now in terms of golf, and people are coming from everywhere." Because I think Ernie was the number one player in the world at the time, close to it. And then someone pointed out to me, he says, Ernie's saying you're one of the young players. Well, actually, you're a year older than him. So, yeah, I mean, it was, so now all of a sudden I'm thinking, this is pretty cool. And all I want to do is compete. It's all I've always wanted to do. I've never played it for money and all that. I just want to compete. And I couldn't wait to get out on the third day. Because I got paired with Ernie Els and got paired with him in the final round. And I just, final group, big tournament. I mean, the nerves are just all over this place. But through what I've done over the last 6-7 years, I've got a fairly good idea of how I'm going to handle this. And one of the ones is, I have these little sayings, and one of them is, no matter what way I can think of stuffing this tournament up, it's been done before, don't worry about it. This sort of fatalistic approach, and just, I believe mentally you can never be calm in this situation. You have these sports psychologists who talk about being calm and calm state. You're never calm. There will always be wind on the water, or I imagine your mind's like a lake, and if it's dead calm, that's your mind. And as long as there'll always be wind on the water. I don't think you should sort of fight that. There's always going to be ruffles, and you're going to be nervy in that. As long as that wind doesn't become gale force, you can handle most situations, and that's all I try and do. And to be honest, third round, again, I'm just treading water. I'm just trying to stay alive and keep myself in there and waiting for the final round.
So you get into the final round and you're paired with Ernie again, the number one player in the world, and you're going neck to neck with him. You're sticking with him. This young Kiwi isn't going away. And it was incredibly exciting as you come into that back nine and your name's right up there on the leaderboard beside Ernie. And you get to the 15th hole. And I want to discuss an incident that happened on the 15th hole, because it's something that is stuck with me and still resonates with me. I think it underpins the absolute professionalism and integrity of the sport, but also clearly the honesty and integrity of Michael Long. So there was something happening on the 15th green. No one else saw it except Michael Long. Talk me through that moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're right. The integrity in the sport and the way we play. I'm like 99.9% of us all like to do the right thing. We play by the rules. So I remember about the 11th hole, I'm going all right. I'm playing against Ernie, and I'm going okay. And the thing is, I didn't see any shot Ernie played. on the whole round. Final 36 holes. I've only watched one shot, and I've hit the shot up this par 5 and the tee shot, and Ernie's about 20 behind me. So I'm feeling quite good. I've just driven Ernie by, and he's waiting for the green to clear. He stands up there and just hits this most majestic 3-wood, and I caught myself right then. I was a spectator. I just watched him play.
Yeah.
Oh, that is great. Man, I mean, I'm supposed to be playing this guy. What are you doing? So he birdies, I par, and then I think I bogey the next or whatever. So now I'm 1 behind. And on the hole before that, 15th, 14th, I hit this tee shot, which was not great. And then Ernie followed up and hit an even worse shot, and we both make pars. I thought that's a bit strange. And then on the 15th, we're in the middle of the fairway, and I've hit a shot to 40 feet, just on the edge of the green, literally on the edge of the green. And he's second to play. And he hits this shot so far right. It's unbelievable. I'm going, I reckon I'm in with a chance here. Things aren't going the way Ernie wants them to go. He hits a pretty good recovery shot to about 10 feet, 8 feet. And it was an awful day. It had been raining all day. We were under umbrellas. We actually come off for a rain delay. Cars were getting bogged in the car park. It was horrendous. And so I noticed my balls, there's a little runner of kite coming onto the green, and my ball's sort of right on it, and line it up, and then have a look. And I have a dot on top of my ball marking, and I look up to the hole and then look back, and it's moved. Oh, God. Oh. And I sort of stood there for about 2 seconds, sort of stunned. And then I sort of backed off and I said, Ernie, my ball's moved. And he goes, what do you mean, cousin? You know, I'm going, oh, it moved. And he goes, oh, no, I can't have. And he was, I mean, the way, a bit like how we all like to play our sport, I think, from the Southern Hemisphere, hard but fair. And he didn't want to see that. And he says, you sure? And I said, yeah, it moved. So we replaced it. And I then pretty much hit a putt, lips out actually, hit a great putt. So I almost got away with it, almost. But then you give Ernie Els, the #1 player in the world, an 8-footer to sort of bury you a little bit, or go one ahead and he hold it. So it all sort of turned on that. But it sort of didn't. He went and birdied the next, and he's 2 up with 3 to go. And then with 2 to go, 3 to go. Actually, I'm getting losing track now. He's 2 up. He's 3 up with 2 to go, sorry. And then I birdie the next. He pars it. So now I'm 2 behind going up the last. And the one place you can't miss it is left. He misses it left. And I'm thinking, if I birdie this, I'm going to be in a playoff. And I hit this shot right up and down the flag, but it came up 40 short. He chips it on to about 12 feet. It's about the best he could do. And then my birdie putt, I think, just died just short of the hole. And he had 2 putts to win. So it was great. I mean, it was. I don't know how to explain it, because a lot of guys play by these rules all the time, and sort of felt a bit of a fuss was made about nothing, because it is part of the game. But believe me, I got a lot of. Look, I mean, I got to meet royalty, won a Fair Play Award, somehow won a Fair Play Award. I think it was Bullymore, the yachtsman, turned his solo race around the world, turned his yacht around and went around and turned back and went and saved someone from their boat that had capsized. That was more my calling a penalty on myself. It's more fair play than Tony Bullymore. I don't know. But look, it sort of helped me get a few invites into Europe, because by that stage I'd earned enough money, so it sort of made my CV stand out a little bit more. So, yeah, so apart from the win, it worked out fine.
Yeah, so obviously you missed just marginally there, but the finish did help you get up into Europe. So that was the next stage of your career. You headed up there, and it looks like in the first season, you did adequately. You finished in the top 50.
Yeah, made tour championship, played quite well, and just enjoyed it. Yeah, it was good fun, and just got used to it. I mean, So by then I think I was about 30. So I remember one of the dreams I had was being on an international tour by the time I was 30. And then lo and behold, I'm there, and it was quite strange.
Now you're back in Australia by 1999 and back playing the Greg Norman Holden Classic at the Lakes. And again, a little bit of dramatics around the final hole. You're in the clubhouse, I assume, with the lead, and Bernard Langer playing the par 3 just has to par it to take victory, but instead takes a triple bogey. And now Michael Long has won. He's got for the guy that was borrowing money back in southern states of America. You've just won $1 million tournament.
Yeah. Look, I mean that was cool fun. So quickly, it was a Sydney. Sometimes you have these southerly buses come in, and when they come in, they blow hard. So the week before, I played. I think it was a PGA, and it blew a gale in the final round. I was up there in that one, and I shot a horrendous 81 or 82, something like that, round La Perouse or New South Wales Golf Club, which is very exposed. So, yeah, it was bad, but a lot of people were having a lot more than I was having. So we, final round there, the southerly bus is due to come at 11:30. I'm teeing off at around 11:40 or something like that. I'm sixth last group out or fifth last group out. Sure enough, the southerly buster comes in. I remember a guy saying to me, "Oh, well, you're gone, aren't you? You can't play in the wind." I'm going, "Okay, fair enough." And I started bogey, par bogey, but then shot 1 under for the day. I don't know how I did it. I got it around. The only player to shoot under par in the afternoon, or from about 11 o'clock, from 10 o'clock onwards, from the tee times. It was a great round. And that final hole, it was the number one. It was the hardest hole that day, par 3, real straightforward, just knock it up there. But it was the hardest hole all day, and I'm playing with Pete Senior again, and he birdies the 17th, so he's on the tee first. I'm thinking, great, I've got a chance to see what he's going to hit here, and we'll work it. I'll be able to work it out from there. And I'm thinking, well, I'm going to have to nut a 3-iron here. And this will probably come up just short, and I'll try and chip and putt. And so Pete gets up there, and I reckon he's pulled 5-iron or something. I don't know what he's thinking, but anyway, he said 5-iron. I'm going, okay, well, I'll just see what this 5-iron does. And he proceeds to put it in the right grandstand. I won't call it a shank, but it was a severe block. And I'm going, well, that's taught me nothing. So I end up, I didn't know what I hit a shot into the bunker. It was plugged or wasn't lying great. Got it out just short of the green, and I chipped and putt for bogey. So I've finished 1 under. So it was a ridiculously hard hole that day. It was playing really hard, and when Bernard hit his shot into, I think it was about 2 series of traps into the first series of traps plugged, I'm thinking, because he needed a par to win, bogey to play off, and I'm thinking, I've got a chance here. I think bogey's going to be a good score for me, and ended up, I mean, he they call him the ice cool German, and he's very good, and he's had a phenomenal career, and it still carries on. But it just shows you what can happen in the span of 5 minutes, 10 minutes. He's over the back of the green. He's flubbed it up onto the green. So by now, I know I've won it. He's taken him 4 to get onto the green. And I'm thinking, yeah, this is mine. I'm pretty sure this is mine. And he's that rattled by this stage that he goes to put his ball. He goes down. I don't quite know what he did. He picked his ball up and picked his marker up at the same time. And he's gone, looked at his hands. He's going, oh, hang on a minute. I got my golf ball. I got my marker. Where's the spot? So obviously shot penalty, and I tell you, probably that really helped was I think Michael Campbell. So he went from possibly being third or tied in a tie for second to coming second outright, and then pretty much I think from there he that's where he went on his little run and won the kept it going and won a major and won the US Open.
So then, of all the injuries that you think that a professional golfer could get, you know, torn muscles and rotator cuffs and wrist injuries and the like. You're boogie boarding at a beach, I understand, somewhere in Western Australia, and an absolute freakish occurrence happens to you coming off a wave.
Yeah. My good friend Elliot Bolt just got some boogie boards for Christmas. Thought we'd go down there on about the 28th, and I just got my card to go to the States. Again, I was back on the Corn Ferry tour. I wasn't on the main tour.
Yeah.
And I go down there, and I'd go down to the water's edge, go to dive to get through a wave, and just completely ride it up and do a 180 and come straight down into the sand. So it wasn't even graceful, wasn't even in the water, it was not even surfing, it was just a disaster. So, well, not really a disaster. I mean, it could have been a lot worse. So I sort of picked myself up, and Elliot goes, "You all right?" I said, "Yeah, sort of." And I had a splitting headache, pain across my shoulders. I was winded, I felt nauseous, but I actually felt better in the water. So, very luckily for me, I stayed in the water for about another 20 minutes, came in on about another 5 waves or 15 minutes with a broken net. So I had a crushed vertebrae, C5, C6, broke the C5 bone, and here I am. I'm still in the water. And eventually the pain up my left arm just became too much, and I had to get out of the water. But I mean, I was just trying to recover, get my breath back, and I was doing a few stretches, stretching across the shoulder. And the specialist said, when I'm in the hospital, about 8 hours later, they told me I got a broken neck. And he says, if you'd just done that, that was it. And that was the one stretch I didn't do, because I felt it all across my shoulders. I never felt it in my neck. And he says, if you'd done that, we could have been had a totally different conversation. And you talk about being a freakish thing. I think that week, 5 of us, five people went into hospital over about 6 days with broken necks or fractured necks, and 3 of us walked out, and 2 had to go on to Shenton Park, which is a rehab, serious neck injury, spinal injury place. And so sort of freakish, but that week it was just that sort of break on the beach, and we actually had quite a few people in hospital that day or that week.
So you obviously recovered, and you got yourself to America eventually, as you had planned, onto the secondary tour. Won twice on there, and earned entry into the very big stage, the US tour, which is an incredible achievement.
Yeah, it was. Thank you. It's a great tour, the Corn Ferry Tour, or back then it was Nationwide and Buy.com. There's been a few names, but it is really brutal. And I possibly think there is more talent on that tour than there is on the PGA Tour. The difference is the PGA Tour is professionals. They are the best of the best. They are super professional and great. But the talent out there, and it's a tough tour to be on. It's not a tour you want to be on for the rest of your life. It will drive you. You'll get old real quick playing it. But if you can get through that tour, it's really good. And to win twice on it, I'm pretty proud of those ones. Tough tour though.
Now, at some stage, you earned an invitation to the White House and found yourself in the Oval Office.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Like, I mean, the US. I mean, that's what happens with the US tour. You don't know who you're going to meet, and golf over there it's not an elitist sport, but it's a sport. It's the big show. When a tournament comes to town, it is the show, and everyone wants to be there. And you just meet people, and you play pro-ams, and you just meet all these wonderful people. And one of them was Spencer Geisinger, who's assistant chief. I've forgotten his title now, but anyway, he worked for the Bushes, and basically he was a guy who'd organise all the overseas trips and engagements for the president, etc., and go ahead and do stuff. And says, "Come on, let's go meet the president." Unfortunately, and we're playing in Washington at the time, and I was going to meet George Bush Jr. Unfortunately, we ran about 45 minutes late, and he had to take off, but still wandered around the Oval Office and in the press room and did all those kind of cool things. And actually, just quickly, there's another story I was going to say. So I got a guy. So the New Zealand Open, when I won the New Zealand Open, so I'm just going to make sure I got his name right. It's Chris, but I can't remember his last name. When I won the New Zealand Open, sort of on the Tuesday or Wednesday, a kid comes up to me and says, "I want, can I have your hat, Mr. Long?" And I've gone, "Well, no, I like to keep my hat for the tournament, but I'll tell you what, at the end of the tournament, come up to me and I'll give you my hat." And so I actually end up winning the New Zealand Open. And this kid comes up to me, he says, "Can I have your hat?" I'm going, "Yeah, no problems, here you go." And I sign it and I give it to him. And don't think anything of it. And it's a strata hat. So I'm in Perth here 18 months ago, and this guy comes up to me through a friend and says, you don't recognise me, do you?" I'm going, "No." "No, I don't, sorry." He says, "I'm the kid you gave your hat to." And he brought it out and showed me. He's still got the hat. It's a strata hat, Chris Redmond. And it's amazing, there's things that happen in golf, whether it's famous people or people who can do things for you, or just these stories that just come back into your life years later.
Yeah. And so you came back to Australia, and amazingly you're still winning, Michael. You won the Victorian Open. You won again over at Kalgoorlie just in 2018, and very recently you've taken to the senior circuit, and you were top qualifier getting ready for the European Seniors Tour, which I guess everything that's going on in the world right now has been placed on hold. But what's the next steps for Michael Long?
Well, I mean, who knows? I mean, and who knows what golf's going to come back like when we start up again. But yeah, it's been pretty good fun. I suppose if you count the US the Stay Sure Tour tour school, I've won in 4 different decades, starting in the 90s and the 2000s, 2010s, and now 2020. So been very fortunate. It's who knows? I mean, I still like playing golf. I still, as I say, I have that itch to get up and practice and work out and train. And no matter how bad the round is that day or the next day, I still want to get out of bed and play golf. So while that passion's still there, I'll look to keep on playing golf. I am starting to do a bit of coaching, and I probably think myself more as it's michaellonggolf.com if anyone's interested.
Nice.
And basically what I'm doing is I see myself more as a coach than a teacher. I believe, you have to have basics in that, but enjoying the game and finding the passion for it is more what I'd like to pass on to people. And so they just find the same amount of enjoyment that I have out of the game. And, who knows where it goes? As Yogi Berra says, when you come to a fork in the road, take it.
Yeah, I like it. Michael, I'm just going to finish this interview off, just bringing it back to Paraparaumu Beach now, and just remembering back to the times you've played there. Do you have a particular favourite hole at Paraparaumu Beach, and can you perhaps tell us why?
That is a good question. There was a lot of great holes about on that course that I love, because I believe in a little bit of I believe in luck in the game, and I like how Paraparaumu, you can hit some shots, you get some bad bounces, you get some good bounces, but it tests all facets of your game, and you sort of have to sort of imagine what you're going to do or how you're going to hit it into that slope to keep it on the fairway, or it's a tabletop green and you've got to land it front edge, because you land it too far, it bounces on. So I'm very much that way, rather than being on a TrackMan and you just smash away, you hit a shot to point A and then it's going to stay in point A. I mean, you can, at Paraparaumu, you can hit a shot to a point and it can end up in point C, not point A where you're going. So I like that, but I really like number 8. And it's probably, as I said, that was the hole just looks innocuous. It's pretty much just hit to the top of the fairway there, where I presume still the same, sort of falls away on either side. The wind is what makes it. Hit a good drive there. A green that just looks fairly innocuous, but can trip you up. And that's what I like about it. I mean, you hit some good shots, you get rewarded. And if you're slightly off, the hole just sort of changes straight away. So that's probably my favourite.
It certainly sounds like from your previous story that 8 played a big role in you winning that New Zealand Open. You birdied that hole and kicked on, took the lead and won the New Zealand Open by 4 shots. And Michael, like I said earlier, that put your history etched into our history, and it's wonderful today to reconnect with you. I know you live in Perth now. I assume you still have family back in New Zealand, and I'd like to think, should the occasion arise, we would love to see you back at Paraparaumu Beach and perhaps share that walk up 18 and enjoy and relive some of that emotion and memories that clearly has been stirred up in you and retold to us here today. So thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your story with us.
Thanks, Leo. I've enjoyed every minute of it. It's a bit self-indulgent, but yeah, the New Zealand Open was it was cool, and it still sends shivers up my spine, especially the last 100 metres where I had to sort of fight my way through the crowd. So that was good fun.
All right, Michael, take care, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Leo. Thank you.